يا حبيبي يا حسين يا شفيع يا حسين.
تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتدركهم ما أنزل آباؤهم فهم غافلون. لقد حقنا القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون. إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم يسمعون. وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون. وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فأرسلنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم مرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب عليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اليوم لا يسألكم عذر وهم مهتدون. وما يعلم الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أأتخذوا من دونه آلهة إن يريد الرحمن بضر لا تغني عنهم شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون. بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من السماء وما كنا منزلين. إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خالدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يعصون من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها هبا فمنه يأكلون. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى آية العرج الكريم. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون. وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومقام لا حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون. وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون ولا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون وظالهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وانتهوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فهم لا يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره نقص في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما ألمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وظللنا لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون ولا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يؤمنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي الخلق قال من يحيي الإسلام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشاها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون وسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون
اللهم صل على محمد.
عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به، فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به، وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلعلع كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولده الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أما، فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي، فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله، فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء، فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدا يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد عذنت لك، فدخل معه تحت الكساء، فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولده الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه، فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي، فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله، فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء، فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدا، السلام عليك يا من اختار الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد عذنت لك، ودخل معهما تحت الكساء، فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله، فقلت عليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين، فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله، فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء، فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن نكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد عذنت لك، فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيته نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن نكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد عذنت لك، ودخلت تحت الكساء، فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ عبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل البيت وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يعلمني ما يعلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم، أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم، إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل سلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وعظم عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماوات إني ما خلفت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلك يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل البيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أحبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلفت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرة ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد عدن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذنوا لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وهي الله إنه نام قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله؟ فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلا أن يتفرقوا. فقال عليهم إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي الثانية يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله همه لا يمين ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه لا يمين ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجة لا يمين. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. مسند غم बिछाई जाती है, मसनद गम बिछाई जाती है, मसनद गम बिछाई जाती है, बज़्म मातम سجائی جاتی ہے مسند غم بچھائی جاتی ہے رنگ کو اکبر چلے تو ماں نے کہا رنگ کو اکبر چلے تو ماں نے کہا عمر بھر کی کمائی جاتی ہے مسند غم بچھائی جاتی ہے مسند غم بچھائی جاتی ہے خون میں ڈوبے ہیں یوں علی اکبر خون میں ڈوبے ہیں یوں علی اکبر جیسے چادر اڑائی جاتی ہے مسند غم بچھائی جاتی ہے مسند غم بچھائی جاتی ہے ایک ریدہ دے دو شاہ کو فروا ایک ریدہ دے دو شاہ کو فروا لاش قاسم اٹھائی جاتی ہے مسند غم بچھائی جاتی ہے مسند غم بچھائی جاتی ہے بولی زینب اٹھو اٹھو عابد بولی زینب اٹھو اٹھو عابد آگ گھر میں لگائی جاتی ہے مسند غم بچھائی جاتی ہے مسند غم بچھائی جاتی ہے بزم ماتم سجائی جاتی ہے مسند غم بچھائی جاتی ہے محمد وآل محمد صلوات
درود بھیجیے محمد وآل محمد قبر اصغر کی قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. شہ کو ایک چاند چھپانے شہ کو ایک چاند چھپانے میں بہت دیر لگی. ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. شین ہر لاش کو جلدی سے اٹھایا لیکن شین ہر لاش کو جلدی سے اٹھایا لیکن لاش اکبر کو اٹھانے میں لاش اکبر کو اٹھانے میں بہت دیر لگی. ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. ٹکڑے چنتے ہوئے قاسم کے ٹکڑے چنتے ہوئے قاسم کے کہا مولا نے ٹکڑے چنتے ہوئے قاسم کے کہا مولا نے ہائے افسوس کے آنے میں ہائے افسوس کے آنے میں بہت دیر لگی. ہے قبر اصغر کچھ قدم دور ہے بازار سے دربار مگر کچھ قدم دور روح بازار سے دربار مگر پھر بھی شہزادی کون پھر بھی شہزادی کون میں بہت دیر لگی ہے قبر اصغر اس قدر پیاس سے سوکھا تھا اس قدر پیاس سے سوکھا تھا گلوے سرور اس قدر پیاس سے اس قدر پیاس سے سوکھا تھا گلوے سرور شمر نے تیغ چلانے میں شمر کو تیغ چلانے میں بہت دیر لگی قبر اصغر باپ کی لاش سے دوروں کی اذیت دیکھ کر باپ کی لاش سے دوروں کی اذیت دیکھ کر ایک بچی کو ہٹانے میں ایک بچی کو ہٹانے میں بہت دیر لگی ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی
for all those who are ill, may Allah grant them shifa. We can recite this 5 times. Bismillah. There is also a request for Surah Al-Fatiha for the marhumeen of the Nanji, Muraj and Saleh Muhammad family, marhumeen of Iqbal and Rabab Hashif family, and the marhumeen of all the Muslims to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام على آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم عداوتهم إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واصبر نفسك مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه ولا تعد عيناك عنهم تريد زينة الحياة الدنيا ولا تطع من أغفلنا قلبه عن ذكرنا واتبع هواه وكان أمره فرطا. صلوات الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. The verse of Quran that I have the honor of reciting before you is from Surah Al-Kahf, the 18th chapter of the Quran, verse 28. And the subject that inshallah I would like to talk about this afternoon is on ghafla, or heedlessness. This particular verse of the Quran is perhaps one of the most powerful verses of the Quran that you will find on this subject in terms of its relevance. And inshallah I will explain this verse and why it is so relevant and powerful further along the Majlis. But to begin with, I would like to simply introduce the concept and what is it that we are discussing. Many a times we hear from lecturers this idea that human beings are in a slumber. They are not really awake. This is a very common theme. And that attaining enlightenment or any kind of perfection is a process of waking up. For example, the famous hadith reported from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib in which he says, "An-nasu niyamun idha matu intabahu." People are asleep. When they die, they wake up. In another narration that is found in Nahj al-Balagha, he says, it is as if you are asleep and you are being carried along. And then when you die, you wake up from your sleep, like you wake up from a dream. At the same time, there are narrations that say that it is possible to wake up before dying. If one chooses to do so, one can wake up to reality, one can wake up to true consciousness and awareness. And that is why the Quran also refers to this, like when it says that, O you who have faith, istajibu lillahi wa lirrasul idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. O you who have faith, respond to Allah and His Messenger when they call you, when they summon you to that which will give you life. Meaning, even though you are physically alive, in the Quran's perspective, you are not truly alive. When you respond to Allah and His Messenger, then you acquire life, then you attain life, then you wake up, then you are truly alive. So what is the meaning of this idea? And I said our subject was ghafla. Ghafla is loosely translated as heedlessness. But what we mean by it is this sense of being alive, eating, drinking, going to work, performing our daily chores, but yet not truly being alive, being sort of asleep, almost unconscious. That is what ghafla is. One of the best ways to understand this is to think of the human being as being made up of certain functions. If you look at your own self as a human being, you will see there are three main aspects to your existence. One is your thoughts that your mind produces. The other are your five senses and what they input to your brain that processes it, because of which you then have a certain reaction or an output. So basically, your sight and your hearing and your taste and your touch and your smell, your senses. And the third would be your emotions, the feelings, when you feel love, when you feel anger, when you feel depressed, when you feel excited, when you're filled with desire and lust. You could categorize all this as emotions, worry, stress, joy, all these are feelings. Can you think of anything else that makes you as a human being, besides your thoughts, your emotions, and your senses? You might not think of anything else. The difference between being awake, being aware, being conscious, being alive, versus being in ghafla, being in slumber, being unconscious, being asleep, is tied directly to these three functions within yourself. Those who are asleep are essentially completely identified with their thoughts, with their emotions, with their senses. They are unable to see their thoughts and their emotions and their senses from outside. They are unable to be aware and conscious of what is happening to their physical bodies, or what is happening to them, or to watch those thoughts coming into their minds and what effect they have on their bodies. One who is aware and one who is conscious functions differently. He has this added component which is awareness. He is aware of his thoughts or her thoughts. He is aware of his emotions, and he is aware of what his senses are doing. And you can think of numerous examples. One who is asleep, unconscious, in ghafla, he sees something, he is completely identified with that sense of sight. That sense of sight sends some information to the brain. It produces a certain reaction. It might be biology, it might be chemistry, because of which temptation and desire arises in his body. But he is completely inside, he is identified with it. So he reacts and commits a sin or falls for that temptation, because he is not watching with awareness outside. One who is alert, one who is awake, one who is alive, one who is conscious, he is able to see that my eyes have seen something haram, and now my brain is thinking a certain thought, and that thought is producing a rise of desire within me. You see the difference between this? We sometimes, a lot of times, those of you who work in the corporate world, you hear this expression of seeing the forest from the trees, right? Where if you're in the forest, you are so occupied with the trees and the problems inside, you don't see the bird's eye view of the forest. You don't see the problem itself holistically as a whole, because you're inside. You need to sometimes step out and see from above. And therefore, to a lot of degree and to a lot of extent, awareness, consciousness coming out of ghafla is learning this skill or this ability to observe your thoughts, your emotions, and what your senses bring in and bring out without being completely identified with them, without completely thinking, I am the thoughts in my mind that it is producing. We can take some examples of this. One example, something that I have mentioned in the past in other lectures, is that one who is unconscious, when he is upset, he will say, I am angry. But one who is conscious, one who is awake, he will not say, I am angry. He will say, there is anger inside me. There is desire inside me. There is worry inside me. The moment you say there is anger in me, as opposed to saying I am angry, you have separated yourself from the anger. You have created a space. You have created a distance between yourself. Now you see anger for what it is. And you can deal with it like one who is alive, conscious, alert, awake, God-weary. But if you're completely identified with the anger, you're playing out that emotion. You cannot see it from outside. Take the difference. Let's take an example. We all sometimes have little children at home and they sometimes drive us mad and we get upset about it. Right? And sometimes we shout at them or we might even hit them, for example. It might not be child abuse, but we might just, a little slap or a little spank or something like that. If at that point in time, if you had been observing yourself from the ceiling, from above, from the corner of the room, and you saw yourself as an adult hitting a little child, your reaction would be different. But when you're in the body, in the emotion, in the thoughts, in the feeling, then your reaction is completely different. You will first hit the child, and thereafter you will sit back and think and say, what I did was wrong. You will feel the guilt of what you did. Because at that moment when you were hitting the child, you were not awake, you were not conscious, you were asleep. If you're dealing with a grown-up, you might not feel bold enough to hit him, but you might shout or abuse. Somebody might upset you at work or on the road, in traffic, or maybe a fight with your spouse. The same thing again, when you're conscious, when you're awake, when you're alert, you observe what is happening from outside, because you are not in ghafla, you are in what is called yaqza, you are awake. And Islam, when it says wake up, it is pushing us towards this, because that is the first step towards attaining any kind of perfection. The first step is being alert and awake and not completely identifying with the body and the emotions and the thoughts and the senses. So when you see yourself from outside having that dispute with your spouse, your reaction is different. You see the human feelings of fear, the feelings of greed, the feeling of insecurity, and you react differently. You might then show compassion even in having an argument to the other, because you see that what they are complaining or fighting or shouting about is not the real problem. There is something else. But if you are completely identified from within, then you do not see that at all. So this is one example. So one example of somebody who is aware, we said, is that instead of saying I am angry or I am this or that, he will say there is anger within me. The other thing that a person who is alert and aware will do is he will always say, I am never upset for this particular reason, or I'm never upset for the reason that I think I am upset. You see, we all get upset about something or the other at some point in life, and it would be safe to say, in fact, at least once a week, if we are more enlightened, if not maybe even once a day, we get upset about something or the other, right? And we usually think we have nailed the reason down. Oh, I got upset because I was in the traffic and this, loser came in and cut on me, or something like that. Or I got upset because, this person kept me waiting for so long. Or I got upset because, I keep telling my husband, not to, leave his wet towel on the bed or to change the toilet paper, and he keeps doing that every time. Or I got upset because my wife is just, she's always late coming out of the mosque. She's always talking. So I have nailed the reason. But the fact is, an enlightened person will always say, I am never upset for the reason that I think I am upset. Because that is not the real reason. When you have this awareness, when you are awake, you are also able to see that the reason being given in that argument is just a superficial reason. There is another reason beneath it that is the real reason. So your spouse might be very upset with you and might be having a very strong argument with you, and it might appear that it's about this or that. But if you are completely identified with the emotion, you will fight about that, and then afterwards you might think, okay, now the fight is over, but after some time there will be another fight about something else, but the reason is the same. Whereas if you are awake, if you are alert, you will see there is another underlying reason. There is some fear, there is some sense of insecurity, there is some worry about being separated from someone or something. There is another cause to that. And once you identify that cause, then even though that person, your child or your spouse or your employee or your brother in faith or your volunteer at the mosque or your teacher at the madrasa is upset about something, instead of reacting, you will show compassion. You will show love. You will show a different reaction because you know there is another reason to that. And in fact, you can take that one step further and say, there is even a deeper reason under all those reasons of fear, of greed, of insecurity and all that. And that deeper reason is the fact that God is absent from my life. That I am disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reason I say this is because we cannot truly know who we are unless we have some understanding and awareness of where we came from and who our Creator is. When Allah is absent in my life, when I am disconnected from my Creator, then I don't know who I am. I don't know why I am here. I don't know what the purpose of life is. I've reached 40, 50 years old. I still haven't found any meaning to my life. I don't know where I'm going. There is this deeper fear and sense of confusion and loss, which is driving all the other fears. So essentially, because I'm disconnected from Allah, and therefore disconnected from my true self, and Allah is absent in my life, now I am essentially already upset. All I need is a reason. So I start looking for a reason. Oh, it's too hot. That's why I'm so frustrated. Oh, mosquito, oh, stock market, gas prices, my employee, my children. I'm looking for a reason to justify and explain my sense of unhappiness. But that unhappiness comes from the fact that I am asleep, that I am in slumber, that I have not woken up. If you're going to say the salawat ala Muhammad. So when we talk of knowing Allah, again, when you talk of knowing Allah, it is not just knowing as a mental process, not knowing Allah as some concept of, there is some higher power up there, but knowing Allah as a realization of, true consciousness of Allahu nuru samawati wal ard. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. Wa huwa ma'akum aynama kuntum. He is with you wherever you are. And He is closer to you, aqrabu ilaykum min hablil warid. He is closer to you than your jugular vein. So knowing Allah not in the sense of a mental idea or a concept in my mind, but knowing Allah in the sense of knowing Him to be present, knowing Him to be very much part of my life, so that when I'm conscious and when I'm aware and when I'm this enlightened being that is able to look at myself and others from the outside and watch my thoughts and watch my senses and watch my emotions, I'm also with this realization that this awareness and this consciousness comes from the true consciousness, the true reality that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I am sharing and partaking of that consciousness, that greater consciousness. Once you are in that realm of awareness, of consciousness, then your reactions, as we said, is very different. Now you will find that you don't feel so insecure, you don't worry so much, you don't get upset so easily. The reason you don't get upset when Allah is absent, or when Allah is missing in your life, then everything else will appear to be missing, because you have not only lost Allah, but you have lost yourself. But when you find Allah, then you have found yourself. When you have found yourself, you will find that you don't get upset, not because you have cut yourself away from society, Not because you are controlling yourself constantly, but because you are connected to something deeper. You are connected to a deeper reality, so that is true life. Everything else is just circumstances of this life. In the grand scheme of things, you realize that these little things, the little arguments, the fact that this is not in its place, the fact that the gas prices have gone up, or the fact that the stocks have tumbled, or the fact that my spouse is upset about this or that, in the grand scheme of things is not what is important. So you don't lower to that level where you're completely identified with the little arguments and dealings that human beings are occupied with. If you can recite the salawat ala Muhammad. And once we attain this awakening, this coming out of ghafla, then not only are we now free from worry, but our perspective on life changes. We look at everything different. Our priorities in life change. If we are choosing a career, the choice we make is driven by higher values. It is driven with a greater purpose. It is driven with this in mind, that I am here for a short while. How am I going to make a difference to the world that I have come to? It is not driven by how much money am I going to make with this career, or what will make me happy. Because a lot of people will tell you, I'm very happy right now. My life couldn't be any better. It is perfect. Everything is going well, work is going well, business is going well, everyone at home is happy, the weather is perfect, I'm getting ready to go on a vacation. But the fact of the matter is, we know it is only a matter of time before something will upset us. And that happiness is not going to stay. That means it is superficial, it is artificial. Why? Because it is the nature of this world that it will constantly challenge you. It will constantly throw challenges at you to see your reaction. And we can deal with the world in two ways. We can see the world as a harsh, bad, negative experience, where we constantly have to fight people, fight things, fight the weather, fight our bodies, fight our desires, fight this, fight that, and struggle and struggle and struggle and hope to get to Jannah. Or we can see this as opportunities. So every time my child makes me angry, I might lose temper, but I also have an opportunity to measure myself and to come to this realization that because of how I reacted, that was proof that I am still asleep, that I am still in slumber. So every challenge, every negative experience, every fight is also an opportunity to measure yourself, to test yourself, to see how you are doing. And the further along you get in life, you will see there is more frustrations, more challenges. Younger adults or children seem to be happier in life. Not only because they have experienced less of life, but they have a little more time, hopefully. And as time begins to run out, the world and Allah in His wisdom gives you more challenges to constantly measure yourself and see where you're at. It's almost as if the world is constantly throwing difficulties and challenges at us, telling us, wake up, wake up, wake up. And this is why Islam constantly tells us, wake up from your ghafla, wake up from your sleep. It is essentially telling us, you are caught in the world, in your emotions, in your thoughts, in your senses. Rise above that and see who you really are. It was Shaitan who saw you as a physical body. That's why he said to Allah, you created me from fire and you created him from earth. But Allah knows your true nature and what you're capable of. That is what we need to realize. Look, for example, a lot of verses of Quran and Hadith, they speak about light. They speak about nur. They will say, for example, Quran is nur. Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam are nur. This is light, that is light. Now when Allah speaks about the faithful in many places in the Quran, in Ayat al-Kursi as well, Allahu waliyul ladhina amanu. Allah is the guardian of those who have faith. How does He guide them? Yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. He takes them out of darkness into light. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَوْلِيَاؤُهُمُ الطَّاغُوتُ يُخْرِجُونَهُمْ مِنَ النُّورِ إِلَى الظُّلُمَاتِ. But as for those who are faithless, their guardians and their faithful and their guardians are the devils. They take them from light into darkness. Now, the Mufassirun have explained this at length. They talk about what is nur and what is darkness, and how does Allah take us from darkness to light, and how do the shayateen take us from light to darkness, and so on. But there is a short hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The hadith has only 2 words, but in those 2 words, it's a brilliant explanation of what it is. What does it mean to come out from darkness into light? He says, Al-yaqdatu nur. Waking up is light. Simple. Waking up is light. That means when you are asleep, when you are in slumber, when you are so occupied on your day-to-day basis with your work and your family and your house and your car, and the house needs to be redecorated, and this has to be done, and that has to be done, and the backyard and the lawn and the shoveling, and you're so caught up with life, which is not really life, it's life circumstances, that you are asleep to reality, to why you exist, to the purpose in life. When that becomes a situation, you are asleep. Then you fulfill that hadith that says people are asleep. When they die, they wake up. That's when they begin to realize, where was my focus and where should it have been? What was I fighting about day and night? And where should it have been? He says, Al-yaqdatu nur. Waking up is light. That means Allahu waliyul ladhina amanu. Allah is the guardian of the faithful. He takes them, yukhrijuhum min al-dhulumati ila nur. He takes them from darkness into light. It means He takes them from being asleep into waking up. He takes them from that state of being unaware, of being unconscious, of being completely identified with the thoughts and emotions and the senses and the body, to a state where you are fully aware of who you are, that you are more than the body. Sometimes a little hadith or a little concept can be very enlightening. It can bring a realization we never thought about. Like, for example, the idea that many of us believe that the human soul is inside the human body. That the soul resides in the body. But mystic philosophers like Mullah Sadra, for example, they say the body is in the soul. Now, if you study his idea of the body is in the soul, and the soul encapsulates the body, it changes, it makes a big difference. Why? Because in the first understanding, the body is primary. And you imagine that when you die, the soul comes out of the body. And there are ahadith that speak of how the soul leaves the body. But you can still explain it in the other way around. If you think of the soul as driving the body, now you see the body as a shirt that you put on. When it's worn out, you take it off and you discard it, because now it is too old and too tattered and too worn out to wear. So when the soul has formed and become what it needs to become, and the body has served its purpose, it sheds the body. But that consciousness that remains after death is who you really are, and that is your soul. And Mullah Sadra explains this with his own arguments and proofs. He says, if you look at a ship, when there is winds in its sails, the ship will sail in the ocean and move. You don't see the wind, but it is what is driving the ship in moving. When the wind is removed, the ship is intact, it is complete, but it's just staying still on the water. It is not moving anymore. You can't see anything missing in the ship, but it doesn't move. It is missing the wind that drives its sails. But the winds are not in the ship. The winds are outside. They drive the ship. In the same manner, he says, your soul is what drives your body. When the soul is removed, the body is intact. You don't see anything missing, but it has separated in such a manner that it can no longer drive that body anymore. So coming out of ghafla is a big thing. And when you read Nahjul Balagha, you will see that Imam Ali alayhi salam, across his khutbat, his main complaint to people, if you read Imam Ali's khutbah, Nahjul Balagha, you will see the main thing he complained about. Most of his khutbah were in the last 3.5 years of his life, because that is when he took the apparent khilafat, right? And so he gave sermons in the mosque of Kufa. You can imagine if he had been giving khutbat for 30 years after the Prophet. These are the last 3.5 years. And his main complaint was the fact that people are asleep, that they are not awake. In one of his sayings, he says, is there no solution to wake you up, O people? Is there no awakening from this slumber? He says, why is it, Mali arakum ashbahan bila arwah? Why is it, O people, when I look at you filled in the mosque, all I see are bodies without any souls in them? Mali arakum ayqadan nuwaman shuhudan ghuyaban nadiratan umyanan. Subhanallah. This kind of language you will not get anywhere except from the Prophet ﷺ and Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, Mali arakum ayqadan nuwaman. Why is it that I see you awake yet you are asleep? Shuhudan ghuyaban. You are present but you are absent. And he says, Nadiratan umyanan. You are looking at me, but you are blind. Why? He says, you are looking at me, but I can see you are blind. You are listening to me, but you don't hear me. Now what does it mean when he says you are present, but you are absent? You have bodies, but your souls are missing. You are looking at me. He means you are in a slumber. You are so identified with your emotions and your thoughts and your bodies. You're constantly reacting to everything. You are not able to perceive reality because you cannot come out of your cage where you are entrapped. What is wrong with man? He says, he has forgotten death, but death has not forgotten him. It is hovering over your head constantly, waiting for your time. There is one hadith in which he says, the best protection and the best shield for a human being is his time of death. There is nothing that protects you more securely than your time of death. That is your best protection. Why? Because it is so fixed and so precise that when your time has not come, nothing can kill you. All those near accidents you have, a car almost hits you and something almost falls on you and you trip and fall, but you survive, an accident and all those things. What is it that is saving you, protecting you? It is your time of death that is hovering over your head like a bird, waiting for your time. Once your time comes, the angels who are guarding you just move away. Then you need an excuse. You just drink water, you'll choke on it and you'll die. You don't need a big tragedy then to prove that. Alastum fi masakin man kana qablakum atwalu a'maran. He says to the people, are you not living in the same lands and in the same homes that were lived by those before you who had even longer lives than you did? Nowadays we change homes so many times, right? In our lifetime we have like 3, 4, 5 homes, we migrate countries. But back in the time people would live in the same homes for generations. But even in the lands that we live, our ancestors moved from India to, say, for example, Africa. We moved from Africa, we came to Canada. Did they not have the same hopes that we have? Did they not want the same thing for their children that we want? Did they not have the same desires that we do? Did they not want the same luxuries that we want? Did they not enjoy food the way we enjoy? Did they not have plans for retirement and pension and security and long lives and hoping they will live until they're 70, 80, 90, 100 the way we do? But Imam Ali alayhi salam says, where are they? What things did they give priority to? And the things that they gave priority to, do they matter anymore today? You don't even know your great-grandfather's name. Maybe you know your grandfather's name. Maybe great-grandfather. You don't know his father's name. But they were human beings like you who moved countries for dreams, for ambitions, for hopes. But because their reasoning was completely with the world and identified, and they lived as if they will never die, today they are of no significance. What they did does not matter. All those fights they had, all those enmity they bore in their hearts, all the money they saved has no value today. All those homes they built, all the time that they spent, the gift of life they were given, where they spent it, television, games, this, sports, nothing matters today. In other words, he's saying, wake up, see that you have a limited period of time in life and give importance to the things that matter, which will only happen when we wake up. He says, why is it that a little bit from this world excites you so much, but when you lose so much from the hereafter, it does not grieve you? If you win $50, you get so excited. You went to the mall, something, you got $100, so excited about this world. Or you got a free ticket or a free vacation, so excited. Little, yasirum min ad-dunya, it makes you so happy. But the fact that you missed your Fajr prayers, or the fact that a whole day has passed and you have not prayed 2 rakats with thought to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you have lost so much time in worship, in obedience to Allah, and that opportunity to make worth millions and billions and trillions of dollars in the hereafter, you have lost all that opportunity. That does not grieve you. Why does it not grieve you? Because you are asleep. Because your focus is somewhere else. Because you are in slumber. Because you are in ghafla. How many a man there are, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, how many a man there are who is having his new clothes stitched, but he does not know it is his shroud, his kafan that he is stitching. And how many a man there are who is building a new home, but he does not know it is his grave that he is building. Why? Because in those days, people used to be buried in their own homes. And people used to have their clothes stitched, yes. They wouldn't buy them ready-made like we do. So he says, how many a man there are, they're building a home with great hope, great ambition. I'm going to live in this home and I'm going to do this. All he is building is his grave. Now, if that same man was awake and aware, and his intention was to build something for his family, it would have still been a good thing. But he would have done it with this awareness that I'm building this home, but it may well be my grave. So it is not that you give up on world or life, but that everything you do is done with awareness, with a sense of being awake. And therefore what he is saying is put things in perspective, stay focused, realize the limited period of time you have in this world. Don't be fooled by the people of this world. The people of this world, when you speak to your financial advisor, when you speak to colleagues at work, when you speak to others, when you watch television, they put your focus somewhere else for the future. When they speak to you of the future, where is the focus? You need to save something for your retirement, right? You need to have a good pension plan. But nobody is mentioning to you, you might never live to retire, right? You might never enjoy that money that you're saving. The focus is on, retirement, saving, investment, maybe even writing a will so that you leave something for your children. Your health, you should have a good health plan. You should have this, you should have that, your children. That is the constant focus in the hereafter. But then what about after that? What is your legacy going to be to this world? When Allah says to you, Yawm al-Qiyamah, I gave you the gift of life. What difference did you make? Or were you a waste of space? Did you teach one child in the madrasa? Did you give one advice to someone that made a difference in someone's life? Were you a good father to a child? Were you a good spouse? Did you show love and mercy to someone on my behalf? Were you a good friend and a good brother to someone? Did you give any charity to make any difference? Did you build a mosque? Did you write a book? Did your existence make a difference in awakening others and bringing them towards me? Or were you so caught up with your physical needs and your senses and your thoughts and your emotions that death took you by surprise and you had no idea when it came to you and grabbed you? This is the difference between being awake and being asleep. If you can recite as-salawat ala I just want to explain the verse of Quran that I began with, because I promised to do that, and just make a conclusion with one point on how we can start towards being awake, and then inshallah come to Masaib. The verse of Quran that we recited was from Surah Al-Kahf. Now, keeping in mind all these things that we have talked about, being heedless, being asleep, completely identified with thoughts and emotions and the physical body and the senses, versus being alert, versus being awake, versus being aware, versus being conscious of who I am, constantly watching the thoughts, the emotions, the body, the senses, all that in mind. Now look at how powerful and beautiful this verse is. Surah Al-Kahf, chapter 18, verse 28. Allah says, وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه. And bear patience along with those who call out and supplicate to their Lord morning and evening, seeking only His presence. Meaning the world is difficult. No doubt it is difficult, but bear patience. Wasbir. With whom? Along with those who are constantly calling out, talking to Allah, remembering Him, staying awake and alert about Him, morning and evening. وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ. Why are they doing it? يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ. Literally seeking His face, meaning seeking His presence. وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ. And never let your eyes lose sight of them. Never be distracted to anything away from this group of people. Stay close to them. تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Seeking the glitter of this world, the adornment of this world. That means He is telling you what will distract you from being constantly with Allah, with this group of people that are constantly awake and present, is when you are distracted by the glitter of this world. تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيا. وَلَا تُطِعْ مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا. And never obey one whose heart we have made to forget our remembrance. أغفلنا is same from غفلة, whom we have made heedless of our remembrance. Meaning they themselves, by being taken in by the glitter of this world, they have become heedless of what? Of our remembrance. So here is the secret ingredient that I want to say then as a conclusion, that those who are asleep or taken in by the glitter of this world, their problem is they have forgotten the dhikr of Allah. That means through the remembrance of Allah, a person wakes up. وَلَا تُطِعْ مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ. And he constantly hankers, follows his desires and his lust. So stay with those who are constantly calling upon their Lord, morning and evening, seeking His presence. Do not fall for the glitter of this world or follow and obey those who are constantly running after their desires and they are heedless in ghafla of our remembrance. وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ وَكَانَ أَمْرُهُ فُرُطًا. And such a person who is heedless of us and following his desires, you will see that his affairs are always exceeding all bounds. They are all scattered. Furuta, ifrat, we say, tafrit. That means you will see that a person who is asleep, when you look at his life, he doesn't have a focus. He is constantly running after this, after that, after that. Today he's Googling on the internet about this career. Tomorrow he wants this career. Today it's this hobby. Tomorrow it's that hobby. Tomorrow it's this passion. Tomorrow it's that passion. Today I want to do this. Tomorrow I want to do this. Today I want to eat this food. Tomorrow I want to eat that food. Tomorrow I want to go here for a holiday. I want to do that. وَكَانَ أَمْرُهُ فُرُطًا. His affairs are always scattered. He doesn't seem to have a purpose in life. He just wants to live the existence of an animal. Constantly flee from pain and seek pleasure. As much pleasure as I can indulge in. That is all I want out of life. Allah says, do not go with them. Do not go with those. These are the people who are heedless of my remembrance. You see how beautiful this verse is. It is a verse worth writing and sticking in front of our desks. Stay with those who remember Allah morning and evening, alert, awake, aware constantly, and not those whose affairs are always exceeding all limits. From this then we understand as a conclusion that the solution to coming out of this ghafla, I have given you 2 points earlier as well. One was that when you feel a certain emotion, instead of saying I am angry, you say there is anger within me. The other was we said that you constantly say and remind yourself the reason of my unhappiness is not what I think it is. It is something larger than that. It is because I am disconnected from Allah. It is because He is absent from my life. But then there is the other thing that we can do or add to it, and that is the dhikr of Allah. Dhikr of Allah does not mean constantly reciting Allah's name. It doesn't mean sitting on the prayer mat and reciting, all these du'as every day, reciting du'a Josh and Kabir, reciting this du'a, reciting that du'a constantly. It is a good thing if you can do it. But here when I say dhikr of Allah, I mean active, conscious remembrance of God with awareness. That when you go to bed at night, talk to Allah. Talk to Him in your own language. You can start with all the names that you know of Him, the beautiful names that you know in Arabic. Ya Hannan, Ya Mannan, Ya Badi'us Samawati wal Ardh. Subhanaka ya Azim, ya Ghaffar, ya Hayyu, ya Qayyum. Then talk to him. Oh Allah, I lie down here not knowing if I will wake up in the morning. Forgive me for my excesses. I truly love you with all my heart. And I have followed you the path of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, because I have not known any other guides better than these. If I had known anyone, O Allah, whom I could follow better than them, I would have gone to them. But these are your doors through whom you have asked me to come. When you talk to him like that, now there is a certain awareness. Now you are remembering Allah, but it is not with slumber where, the person in front in the mosque is making us do amal, and we're doing this amal, astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh, astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh, astaghfirullah, and we're looking like how many more to go, right? That is not the dhikr of Allah. That sort of dua is not even answered, according to the sixth Imam. He says that is like a parrot. You can teach a parrot to read like that. But conscious awareness. When you do that, the next step you will see is that in the middle of the night, when you wake up and you turn from one side to another, you will be remembering Allah. You will see that when you turn from right to left, you will be saying, Astaghfirullah wa atubu, la ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. Automatically you will do it. And there is a hadith of this as well, because in the Quran there is a verse that praises certain elite, exclusive believers and says, وَكَانُوا قَلِيلًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ مَا يَهْجَؤُونَ. And little of the night it is that they used to sleep. There is a verse in Quran that says, little of the night it is that they used to sleep. It praises this elite group of people whose reward is exceedingly high. There is a hadith on this from Imam Jaffer as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa sallam. He says, these people who Allah says little of the night it is they used to sleep are not only those who used to wake up from their beds and do wudu and sit on the prayer mat. It is also those who in the night, when they turn from their right to their left and left to the right, they remember Allah and they say, La ilaha illa anta, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, subhanaka ya Rabb, and they turn. Now this is active conscious. When that happens, you will find now when you wake up from your bed as well, you begin with Allah's name. Not because you have memorized or made a habit, but there is this conscious awareness. You get up saying, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no strength and no power except Allah's. And I place all, wa ufawwidu amri ila Allah. I have put all my affairs this day in Allah's hands. Bihawlillahi wa quwwatihi aqum wa aqud. I stand now with the strength and power given to me by Allah. When you begin to do that, you will see that this active dhikr of Allah will drive everything then. It will drive your aim, it will drive your goal, it will quell unlawful desires, it will give you perspective, it will drive the career choices you make, it will drive how you deal with your family, and you can enjoy the same things that others enjoy, but yours will be an alive, awakened enjoying with awareness. You can still watch television with your family, but now it is not an idle pastime because you are fed up with the world and you want to just, drain your brain because you've had such an exhausting day. Now you're watching television because you're sitting with your child and you're socializing and you're doing something to show love to them as well. Now you're eating good food as part of something you're doing with your family. Now you're going on vacation, you're spending quality time with your family. They are seeing you as a role model of somebody who is awake, somebody who is aware. And you can do everything else that you do that others do. But there is this sense of being awake as opposed to being in slumber. And this is very, very important. This is, as I said, what Imam Ali alayhi salam complained about the most to his ashab. The Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam came to teach us this. Wake up from your sleep, out of this ghafla. When we read the story of Karbala, what we see in Karbala is exactly this. Why were the people who came to kill Imam Hussein alayhi salam not able to see the truth? Despite all the arguments, the fact that he came to them and said to them, am I not the grandson of your prophet? Am I not the son of the daughter of your prophet? Have I done anything that has broken the law of Islam for which I deserve to be killed? But despite all those arguments, they were not able to see. Why? Because they had gone so far in their slumber, it was impossible to wake them up. For other reasons as well. They ate so much haram food that their hearts had become hard. And that is why they began to beat drums to drown the voice of Aba Abdullah bin Hussein. And he says to them that yes, you will not listen to what I say. Why? فَقَدْ مُلِئَتْ بُطُونَكُمْ مِنَ الْحَرَامِ فَطُبِيَ عَلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ. You have filled your stomachs with so much haram that your hearts are now sealed. It is dangerous, isn't it? That when an imam, ma'asum, cannot change a person. Which means the Quran and the imams are guides. But that awakening, that change, that keeping the heart alive is up to us. We have to keep it alive. These are the days and nights in which we now remember the suffering of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in their journey from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham. And in the coming nights we will be talking about Sham and the suffering in the prison of Sham and in the courts of Yazid. What I wish to do here tonight in these days, in the early days after the days of Ashura, is to talk about the suffering of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in Kufa. When the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam were taken to Kufa, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad la'anatullah alayhi, his primary aim was to prevent them from being sent to Sham. Because he also wanted to kill Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam and to kill the other Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in Kufa. And in fact, after they were imprisoned in Kufa, he wrote a letter to Yazid, hoping that Yazid would say, deal with it. And he had even told Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam that if Yazid does not reply in 3 days, I will kill you. He was, in fact, the books of Maqtal say that he was very disappointed when Yazid actually replied very quickly to say, do nothing with them and send them to me. Because just as he bragged about them in the streets of Kufa, Yazid wanted to do the same. And Yazid thought he will brag about them, not knowing that he was actually setting himself up. Because by bringing them to Sham, he was now going to awaken those people who were asleep as to what and who the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam really represented. But when Ibn Ziyad brought them to Kufa as well, he did not just bring them unceremoniously. Why? Because he wanted to maximize the humiliation that he thought he would put on the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We are told that on the 11th of Muharram, when this qafila left from Karbala and came to Kufa, when they reached the outskirts of Kufa, it was evening time. And Umar ibn Sa'ad la'anatullah alayhi sent a letter to Ibn Ziyad asking permission to enter the city. And Ibn Ziyad said, do not enter tonight. We shall first decorate the streets of Kufa. And it was only the next day that he said, bring them and parade them in the streets of Kufa. The books of Maqtal say that in the past, when people would behead someone, the head would be brought on a platter. The first head in Islam to be put on a spear was the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the grandson of the Prophet. This is the first head that was put on a spear. And it is also the only head that was reciting Quran as it was brought into the streets of Kufa. Some of the people who narrated what happened in Kufa, they say, we saw this qafila coming forward. There were spears ahead with heads on them. There was one particular head that had nur coming from it, and it was reciting Quran. And behind that there was a young man on a camel. He was tied in chains. He had an iron collar on his neck. There was blood dripping from the veins of his neck and from his feet. He was reciting poetry and saying, O people of Kufa, what will you say to my Jad Rasulullah Yawm al-Qiyamah when he asks you, for what sin did you kill my family? And behind him, he says, there were women. As the women were being brought in the streets of Kufa, he says some people were crying and some were laughing. Some of the women out of pity brought bread and dates and began giving it to the children of the Ahlul Bayt. And Zainab alayhi salam would take the bread and dates away and give it back to them and say, O people of Kufa, we are the family of the Prophet. As-sadaqatu alayna haram. We do not take charity and we do not take alms. Ajrukum ala Allah. When this qafila was brought to the darbar of Ibn Ziyad, it says when Zainab alayhi salam began addressing the people of Kufa, there was a blind man standing behind in the court of Kufa. His son was standing beside him. He said to his son, tell me, my son, already He said, no, my father, it is not the day of judgment. He said, then tell me, has Ali bin Abi Talib been brought back to life? He said, no, Ali bin Abi Talib has not been resurrected. He said, why is it I can hear the voice of Ali? He said, this is the daughter of Ali. Abdullah bin Afif began arguing with Ibn Ziyad. Anyone who spoke against Ibn Ziyad was killed. Ajrukum ala Allah. Then Ibn Ziyad had the qafila again paraded through the streets of Kufa. When the streets of Kufa became narrow, and people came from all sides thronging and stopping the family and asking them. There is an incident the Arbab of Azhar say, at one point the qafila stopped on one street, and Sakina, the daughter of Hussein, began saying to her aunt Zainab, Ammati Zainab, al-atash qad qatalani. My dear aunt Zainab, I have not asked for water since my Ammu Abbas died in Karbala. By Allah, I am thirsty. A lady standing on the balcony of her house heard the sound of Sakina. She came running down with a small bowl of water. She said to Zainab, oh lady, I have brought water for your child. When your child has drunk water, I want her to make some dua for me. Sakina took the little water in her hands. Zainab stopped the little girl and said, my dear child Sakina, pray for this lady first and then drink water. We are the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. But Sakina put the water down. She raised her little hands towards the heavens. The lady began praying. She said, Rabbana, oh Allah, I ask you, let not my child become an orphan like this little child has become an orphan. Ajrukum ala Allah. Little Sakina put her hands up to the heavens. Oh Allah, do not let her children become yatim like I have become yatim. Oh Allah, do not let them lose their Baba the way I have lost my Baba. Then the lady said, I have one more wish. Pray for me that I should go for ziyarah to Medina. Bas Zainab had Medina again. She said, oh lady, what have you to do with Medina? She said, my Aqā and Mawla is in Medina. Pray for me to go for ziyarah of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Pray for me to go for ziyarah of Sayyida Zainab. Zainab alayhi salam said to her, Habiba, Habiba, if you see Zainab, will you recognize Zainab? Habiba said, yes, I was a maid in their house. Why would I not recognize Zainab? But Zainab parted her hair from her face. Habiba, your dua has been accepted. Habiba, I am your Sayyida Zainab. Habiba, look ahead, the head on the spear is your Aqā Hussein. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah.
وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون لله وإنا إليه راجعون إلهي بحق محمد وأنت المحمود وبحق علي وأنت الأعلى وبحق فاطمة وأنت فاطر السماوات والأرض وبحق الحسن وأنت المحسن وبحق الحسين وأنت قديم الإحسان وبحق 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسن والحسين يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله. Oh Allah, we ask you for maghfirah from all our sins. Oh Allah, we ask you to protect us from the evil and the sins of this world and to not take us from this world until we have woken up from our sleep.